Lin-Manuel Miranda has been a busy, busy man in the world of animation this year, and he wrote the songs for two feature-length animated films. We're going to talk about both of them right now, Encanto and Vivo. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free reviews for the recent films Encanto, the new Disney film, the 60th in their animation canon, and then as well the Netflix film Vivo. I've paired these together because Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the music for both of them, and actually he leads the voice cast in Vivo as well. So before we get into these two films, I do want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video and my channel. Please consider subscribing. Would love to have you aboard here. We are approaching 900 subs, which is cool. So definitely think about that if you like this video. So let's get right into these movies. First up, obviously, we're going to talk about the big Disney blockbuster Encanto. It premiered at #1 over the Thanksgiving holiday, which is no surprise. Disney has long sort of been the Thanksgiving leader. Last year in 2020, they took the year off, of course, because most theaters were closed. But Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen 2, many of their big tentpole fall films premiere on or around Thanksgiving weekend, and Encanto is no exception. So in this movie, I don't believe Lin-Manuel voices anyone, although he may have a cameo. But Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is unrecognizable here as the lead Mirabel. So we'll get into the specifics of that. But the basic story is that the Madrigals are this family who live in the hidden mountains of Colombia in this magical house. It can do it all in this charming place called Encanto. And basically the magic of the community, the town, has blessed each member of the family with a special gift. And the movie starts out as they're preparing for the gifting ceremony for one of Mirabel's younger siblings. But when she had her magic gift ceremony, she was left empty-handed. She has no gifts. Oh my gosh, what happened? You know, why was she such a dud? And so this movie basically explores that sort of idea of, okay, what if everybody in the family is quote-unquote special except for you? And then, of course, you know, she has to sort of go on a quest to find what makes her special. And it could be that she is finding out the house is in danger. The magic surrounding the Encanto is dangerous and could be going away. So she takes it upon herself to go on a quest to find out why and how to stop it. So that's the basic premise here. Included in the voice cast are some familiar names, and I think maybe some new ones as well. John Leguizamo is here, who we love. I just actually watched him recently in Romeo plus Juliet back in 1996 for the 25th anniversary. I did a video about that, and he is much younger. It was one of the first things I remember seeing him in. It was shortly after, I think, To Wong Fu. And he's so young in it, but he's great in everything. You know, he always shows up and really brings his all. He doesn't necessarily do leading performances very often, and when he does, I think they're a bit scattershot. But you know, as a supporting character, he's always good, and he does that here as well. But yes, like I said, Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine plays Mirabel, and I've been seeing her pop up a lot lately in these more you know, upbeat roles. You know, her role in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is so, she plays Rosa, and she's so sort of hard-edged and hard-boiled and, you know, tough to crack and tough to read. And then, you know, she showed up in The Heights, another Lin-Manuel production there, with this, you know, boisterous singing voice and just loving life. And here, I'm pretty confident she does her own singing as well. So the grandmother, I don't really know. Maria Cecilia Botero. Now, she does not sing for that character, but like I said, I do think Stephanie Beatrice sings for her own. I think most of the people are singing for their own characters here. Everybody else, I don't really recognize except Wilmer Valderrama of That 70s Show has a minor role. And, of course, yes, the cast is mainly Latinx, but of course you have to lately in every Disney movie have Alan Tudyk as your sort of good luck charm, and he was, I believe, the only white cast member in another recent Disney movie as well. Was it Raya? I guess because that was all Asian, and yeah, I think Alan Tudyk was the one, sort of white guy in the cast. And here they do it again. He plays Pico, who is a very clueless toucan. So to get into the specifics of this movie and the review portion, I do think that this movie has some issues. It is not up to par with a lot of the recent Disney and Pixar stuff. And of course, Coco is sort of the pinnacle, I think, of the animated films about Mexican Americans or Latinos. But in terms of animation, but of course that was Pixar, not Disney proper. But this is a step down, I think, from Raya and the Last Dragon, and some of the other recent Disney films. There's a few reasons for this. Number one, and we'll get into this a little bit more with Vivo as well, but Lin-Manuel Miranda's music lately, I think, is a bit stagnant. I think a lot of it sounds very similar to Hamilton, and look, it makes sense. The guy built his entire career on Hamilton. Fantastic. And I loved In the Heights, one of my favorite movies of the year. But even with that, a lot of the music was sort of a bit derivative. But, of course, he wrote it 10 years ago. So it's like, okay, that was sort of, before he was the Lin-Manuel Miranda. But he wrote the music for this and Vivo. And both of them have this distinctive stamp of this is a Lin-Manuel Miranda track. And that is not necessarily a horrible thing when the songs are catchy. But here I think we stumble a little bit with that. Now, he did the music for Moana as well. His relationship with Disney goes back years and years. He was in Mary Poppins Returns, did the music in Moana. They, of course, put Hamilton on Disney Plus, the stage production. So, long history there. It makes sense. But to be completely honest, I think the music here is pretty derivative. I actually think it's more derivative in Vivo, which we'll get to, but I think here it's very, very Hamilton-esque. And, it's maybe too much of a good thing, I think. And I was talking with my buddy Tim about how, yes, he did the songs in Moana, but they weren't quite, it did have sort of that Lin-Manuel stamp on it, but it wasn't quite as obvious about it, I think, maybe, as the tracks here. One other thing in the negative column is that as much as I love Alan Tudyk, the character of Pico, this clueless toucan, well, we've done the clueless character bits, Moana specifically, with Hey Hey being a very notable one, but there's been sort of a lot of that lately in Disney films, and maybe old Disney films had it too. I'm trying to think. I've been going over some of the old ones. I guess so. I don't know. Like when I think of some of the old classic like sidekicks, like Jiminy Cricket wasn't dumb, and the mice in Cinderella, they weren't dumb. But here, everybody's got to be dumb, I guess. So don't really love that. Alan Tudyk, of course, always does great with his little grunts and voice work. But they already sort of did the clueless bit with the sidekick. Number 3, I think this movie resolves incredibly quickly. It definitely harkens back to some of those old Disney movies like Snow White, where it's only like 78 minutes of film, so everything wraps up within the last 2 minutes. They kiss happily ever after, roll credits. Of course, I guess then the credits were in the beginning of the movie, but you get my point. But here it is very much like, and I again, no spoilers, but things get resolved, and people are left with the resolution, and then smiles, roll credits. It's very, very quick. So I thought that was a bit jarring as well. Even my nephew, I took my 10-year-old nephew to it, and even he was like, well, that was over quickly, or something to that effect. And it really was. So there you go. And then my final negative is that not all of the story, but there's a lot of things in the story that don't exactly make sense or are explained at all. And again, you could have fleshed this movie out a little bit. I mean, there are movies, even in the animated realm, that go up to, 2 hours. This is only like an hour and 40 maybe? It's definitely not that long 109. So an hour, okay, an hour and 50 minutes. All right, so that is maybe getting there, but I think that includes the 8 minute short at the beginning of it too. So really the movie Encanto itself is only an hour and like 42 minutes maybe. You could have stretched that to another 4 or 5 minutes, explain things a little bit more, maybe given us an extra minute of resolution at the end. Okay, but those are all the negatives, and yes, it seems like there's a lot. But through it all, this is a positive grade because here are the positives. It's gorgeous animation. It's not quite to the level of Raya and the Last Dragon, I admit that, but it's really eye-popping stuff. Very colorful, very catchy, and the songs, even though they are a bit Hamilton-y, a bit derivative, I think are for the most part pretty solid and fun. So I like that. And I think Stephanie Beatrice, does great as the lead. She's really, I'm excited to see what her post Brooklyn Nine-Nine career looks like, because I think that's how many of us were introduced to her, as the hard-boiled Rosa. And now we're seeing different sides of her. And, I'm definitely, In the Heights, it sort of threw me a little bit, but here I'm definitely, loving, her attention to this voice and the singing as well. She's a very good singer. I'm pretty sure that is her doing the singing. And, of course, maybe best of all for these Disney movies is the message. We have a great message here of, being true to yourself, even if, nobody else thinks you're special. Everybody's got something that they can provide, even if it's not magical powers, like the rest of her family. She definitely can come into her own, and I think that's a good message as well. And she's never giving up. She's always sort of looking on the positive end of things, and never giving up when I think many others could be like, oh, well, everybody in my family's special but me. Like, I'm just going to go away and leave everybody alone. Not Mirabelle. She's pretty in your face about how excited she is for you, to get your gift and all that kind of stuff. And I think these are all good messages. So overall, I sort of am between a B and a B minus here. But I think at the end of the day, I've already upped a couple of my Disney grades for the year. I originally gave Raya a B+. I think that's going to be an A minus come year's end. Luca, I gave a B from Pixar, and at the end of the day, I decided, well, I guess maybe that's a B+. So I guess I'll cut out the middleman and just leave this as a B, because if I give it a B minus, I might raise it up anyway later on in the year. It was an enjoyable film. I certainly had problems with it. It's far from, some of the A's in the Disney canon, tangled among them, if we're going to talk about, the recent decade of Disney stuff. Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph was an A. The original Frozen, I gave an A originally too, and I guess I stick with that, but it's been so overplayed and overdone, so there you go. But yes, I will leave Encanto with a B. We'll just cut out the middleman of having to deal with it later. So let's move on to Vivo now, and this is not only the music of Lin-Manuel Miranda, but he does the lead voice here, and you can find this on Netflix. It is free to watch. It came out, I guess, over the summer, and I just sort of between being on vacation and just not paying much attention, it sort of bypassed me completely. But with Encanto coming out, I figured, well, this will be a good time to actually give this one a watch. So this one-of-a-kind Kinkajou, which I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but it's voiced by Lin-Manuel Miranda. He embarks on an unforgettable musical adventure, as you do, to deliver a love song to this character, Marta, voiced wonderfully by Gloria Estefan. I recognized her voice just because I know, I've been following her career for 35 years, but she actually does a really great job here. And of course, the reason I knew it was her was because of her singing voice, but then I listened to the speaking voice too. I was like, oh yeah, that's my girl Gloria. Anyway, he is delivering this love song on behalf of his owner, Andre, or Andres, who is Juan DeMarcos of the band Buena Vista Social Club. So very, very musical elements already, you can tell, in this movie, because you've got Gloria Estefan, you've got Lin-Manuel Miranda, the dude from Buena Vista Social Club, which, isn't like a top-tier band, but they've been around for 20 years or more, sort of on that Latin alternative type of scene. So we've got that. And here, look, you have some of the pitfalls of not being a Disney film. The budget was not as high, so the animation is not as beautiful. And this movie goes back, by the way, over a decade. It was first pitched to DreamWorks in 2010 by Miranda himself. But the company was sort of restructuring their animation department, and so it sort of fell to the floor. But then, of course, Hamilton broke big and all of this. So in 2015, it was revived and fast-tracked there. And it was supposed to come out, I guess, last year. Was this another COVID casualty? It probably was, right? Yeah, it was supposed to be released in December of last year, but that ended up not being true. And actually, even before COVID, it says here on November of 2019, they moved the theatrical date to 2021 in April. And then, of course, because of all the COVID stuff, then they sold it to Netflix, of course. But let's see. You have Zoe Saldana here as well. No stranger to the animation world. Because I think she was a big part of, was it Book of Life, maybe? I can't remember, but she was big on something. And then you've also got Brian Tyree Henry and Nicole Byer as some star-crossed lovers there. Michael Rooker here is this python who, hates loud noises, so of course the singing is a no-no for him. And a few other people you might recognize. Leslie Baker from The Office, he plays Stanley. He's here as well. So this one is certainly a more diverse cast than Encanto. Encanto, other than Tudyk, is almost all Latinx people. But this has, a little more of a diverse cast because, some of the animals, it takes place, in the jungle and stuff. So this is more of an adventure story. And yes, it certainly has some funny moments. Both these movies do have some funny elements. But this one, is more, I think, of an adventure story and a romance than anything. And Encanto, there's certainly some action there, but I would say it's more of maybe a action comedy or even sci-fi with all the magic stuff, or fantasy, I guess, is more appropriate. And of course, this is a little bit of a fantasy too, because Vivo speaks, and that's obviously, we don't, have that very often, as talking monkey. So it's a bit of a fantasy, like most cartoons. And all of these animals, of course, are doing their speaking roles. But like I said earlier, the music in this is very, very Hamilton. And it's interesting then that he pitched this back in 2010, because now that I know that information, I feel like maybe he could have been writing this music alongside of things like Hamilton and In the Heights kind of around the same time, which would explain why this is ultra Hamilton-y in this movie. But look, I think Lin-Manuel Miranda does a fine job in the voice role. I don't think that the character is quite as exciting as Mirabel is in Encanto. But he's certainly, I think, a funnier character. And Lin-Manuel does his, usual sort of, I don't want to call him a ham, but, he does go a little bit over the top and energetic with his performances. And it sort of oozes through this one as well. And I don't think that's necessarily a negative, because I don't think it veers into like the hammy and over the top sort of department. But if you think of how he was in Mary Poppins Returns as the chimney sweep, very, very up, very energetic. And of course that translates into the singing as well. And here we get this too. Gloria Estefan does great, by the way, as the person he's delivering the love letter to. I like the lore of this better than Encanto. It's explained a little bit better as well. Makes more sense. But I would say overall, Encanto is the more enjoyable film. But it had more, negative qualities, I think, than Vivo. Certainly the animation in Vivo, though, is not up to the Encanto level. So I'm actually going to leave this one with a B too. So there's certainly different reasons for these Bs. And I do think Encanto is a more enjoyable but more flawed film. Vivo is more of like, you put it on, you kind of can, maybe not take in every second of it. You don't have to glue yourself to the screen. It's more as pleasant, sort of background stuff. But the action scenes are directed pretty well, so you do want to pay attention to those. And I do think the music is probably more of a throwaway in Vivo than it is in Encanto. So both have positives and negatives. I'm going to leave them both with B's. All right, so that will do it. More Lin-Manuel, by the way, coming up, because I just watched Tick, Tick, Boom last week, which is his film debut as a director. And it's from a Broadway show of Jonathan Larson's, the guy that did Rent. But Lin-Manuel directed that, so we have more Lin-Manuel coming up with that one. I thought about putting that in this video as well, but I thought, well, there's 2 animateds already. So we're going to do that one actually with another new musical that just came on demand, Dear Evan Hansen. So anyway, that will be upcoming. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.